Hello. Today we're going to discuss shortly the cardiovascular system, which focuses on the heart. The heart is about the size of a baseball, and it's covered with cardiac cells, muscle cells, that are special just to the heart. There's no other area in the body that has this type of muscle. Now, if we cut it in half, we can see the specific functions and parts of the heart. The top portion are called atriums. You have a right and left side, and the bottom are ventricles, and there's right and left side of those as well. The heart contracts and pumps every day continuously. Even when we're resting, eating, drinking, it continues to pump. I'm also going to be explaining a little bit about the blood vessels and arteries that we have in our body, which is also called the circulatory system. And I'll explain a little bit about how blood circulates through the body and how that works. Veins will take blood into help the blood travel into the heart, and it is considered bad blood at this point, which means it's deoxygenated. As it enters into the right atrium, it will pass through a tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. After that, another artery takes it to the lungs, takes the blood to the lungs. As it enters the lungs, it travels through branch-like capillaries, and that's bronchioles, which is where it gets oxygen,
travels down to the
and
capillaries,
then travels down through the capillaries,
which is where diffusion takes place.
It gets rid of the waste and the carbon dioxide and picks up oxygen and travels back to the left atrium. At this point, you can call it good blood. After it travels to the left atrium, it goes through the bicuspid valve, into the left ventricle. That's the biggest part of the heart, and it has the biggest responsibility because after the left ventricle, it pumps the blood throughout the entire body.
Through the aorta.
It travels to places such as your brain, your extremities, and the aorta is the biggest artery, which carries it blood up to the brain. You also have your thoracic cavity, which the left ventricle is the most important because of that responsibility. It has to carry blood through the entire body. Now our vessels expand and constrict, and they do this to help us survive. In case of an emergency, maybe if your heart rate goes up, you have more blood that's going through your body, and so your vessels would expand. Or maybe if you get a cut somewhere, they would constrict at that point, which saves your blood or saves you from losing your blood.
Starts clotting.
And it starts clotting. This is an involuntary response, so you don't have to really think about it. Your body just does this naturally. So those are the two that's basics for the cardiovascular system and the circulatory system. And remember, the circulatory system consists of our arteries, our vessels, and veins. And arteries do become smaller as it travels away from the heart into smaller capillaries. And then those capillaries help the blood travel back to, through the veins back to the heart. And that's the cardiovascular system and circulatory system.